suspect!
Coming to get you, Bobber.
Wolfman's got Nards!
Hi guys, my name's Barry and welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to be trying to figure out which franchise is bigger and or better, the Halloween franchise or the Scream franchise. Now a lot of this is obviously going to be opinion based, but there are some aspects that we can determine which is possibly more popular in terms of box office. So that's the first thing I'm going to talk about, box office. It would obviously be unfair to compare both box offices in terms of the totals that they've all made, because Halloween has had 12 movies in its franchise, whereas Scream has only had 4 so far. So if we calculated the totals, it would be unfair, but we'll do it anyway. So the Halloween franchise has taken in $749 million so far. That's obviously going to rise a little bit more with Halloween Kills still being in the cinema, as well as Halloween Ends coming out next year. And then we've got the Scream franchise. It's made a total of $603 million, but again they've got Scream coming out in January. But again, it would be unfair to do this because Scream only has had 4 movies so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare the averages of each movie. So we're going to take the Halloween total divided by 12, get your answer, and then you're going to take the Scream's total divided by 4, and then you've got your average. So Halloween's average is averaging in at $62.4 million at the box office per movie, and Scream is taking an average of $150 million at the box office. Now we know that we do have to take inflation into consideration when you're looking at these movies, because there are some Halloween movies that are a lot older that have made a little bit of money, and it would have been bigger money these days. Obviously the markets would have changed throughout the years as well, so we can't determine if that would be fact, but for fun what we'll do is we'll compare the first Halloween movie to the first Scream movie, and then we will do the rate of inflation to see who comes out on top. Now the first Halloween movie came out in 1978 and it made a worldwide total of $70 million. Pretty good for back in 1978, but today that would be a grand total of rate of inflation of $297 million. So it's a huge amount of money that Halloween would have made in 2021 if the same fan base watched the movie the exact same amount of times in 2021. So $297 million. Back in 1996, Scream made $173 million, but again that was just under 20 years later. So it's still impressive, but could it be as impressive in 2021? Well, yes it is. It would have made $304 million in 2021. So that is just $7 million more than Halloween. Going back to the original amount that Scream made of $173 million, that was at the time the highest grossing slasher movie of all time. It overtook Halloween by a country mile, so Scream became the biggest slasher movie of all time because of Scream 1. Nothing was able to take over it again until 2018, when, surprise surprise, Halloween from 2018 came out and took over Scream for the first time in years. So it seems like Halloween and Scream have got this battle going back and forward at the box office. Halloween reigns victorious, Scream takes over, Halloween takes over. It is a battle for top spot, and we can clearly see that Scream and Halloween are the top 2. Next we're going to talk about which is the better movies of the franchise, and this is where it gets a little bit more subjective. Yes, we do have figures, but it's figures based on opinion. If you look at IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, etc., you can see that Halloween from 1978 is the best movie out of all of the movies. Halloween is also home to some of the worst movies as well, but you have to also take into consideration that Halloween has brought out more movies, therefore there's a bigger chance that Halloween will have one of the worst movies in the franchise, and it does. It has a couple of the worst movies in the franchise. When you look at the averages, although, for both franchises, you see that Scream does come out on top because it does consistently give us better made movies. The budget is also bigger for Scream, so you would expect them to have a better made movie. Maybe not better quality in terms of what you're looking at, but the production value of the Scream movies are obviously going to be bigger and better. But Scream does consistently give us better quality and better made movies, whereas the Halloween movies, they don't do so much, especially in the later 80s and the 90s and the noughties. So consistently, Scream is better, whereas Halloween, because it's given us more movies, there is a higher chance that they'll give us a few duds. Let's look at the fan base, because this is very important as well as interesting, because when you look at the fan base of Halloween fans, you know, there was no bigger fan base than Halloween, possibly Friday the 13th as well, back in the early 80s, right through to the 90s. You know, Halloween fans were all over the place, and they still are today. But when Scream came out, we had a new generation of fans. I was that generation. You know, I was born in 1983, so I was the generation of growing up, being able to watch Scream movies as soon as they came out, whereas I couldn't do that with Halloween until I was a little bit older. And in fact, I was enjoying both franchises at the same time, because I was reintroduced to the Halloween franchise as a teenager and just introduced to the Scream franchise as a teenager. The popularity shifted when Scream came out, because it was that kind of hip meta franchise that came out in the mid-90s, and everyone was flocking towards it because they were good and really good made movies. So I think the balance shifted when Scream came out, because they consistently brought out 3 movies within 3 years. Obviously there was a hiatus for a good while, but the Scream franchise remained high because of the quality of the Scream movies, whereas Halloween was fading out because they only brought out a few movies here and there after the 90s, and most of the movies weren't that good. And in fact, they were so bad that they had to reboot the franchise with a remake, whereas Scream can hold their head up high because they've never had a remake yet. Obviously, with the reintroduction to yet another reboot, Halloween has now become very popular again, with Halloween from 2018, Halloween Kills, and the eventual Halloween Ends. So the fan base is shifting again, simply like what happened with the box office. It was Halloween at the box office, then it was Scream, then it's Halloween again. The same with popularity of the fan base as well, but because Scream has a new movie coming out in 2022, that fan base isn't shifting that much. It looks like they're kind of on an even keel when it comes to popularity. Let's look at creativity of the both franchises, and again, this is only going by my personal choice and my opinion, and I can't really ask anyone else because everyone has a completely different opinion on it. But when it comes to creativity, when you look at Halloween 1 and Scream 1, Scream is obviously taking the horror tropes from other horror movies, so when it comes to originality, Scream is copying it even though it's doing something unique, whereas Halloween was very unique at the time. I think when it comes to creativity of both franchises, Halloween would win if there was only one Halloween movie and only one Scream movie, but because you've got so many sequels in both franchises, I think that the creativity of Halloween dipped dramatically after the sister-brother aspect, that they had to keep rebooting it and changing it. So when it comes to creativity, I don't think Halloween's very creative at all, and that's due to the sequels that the movie got, having to reboot it twice and branch off and do remakes. The creativity was gone, and they ran out of ideas, whereas in Scream, although all the movies are consistent and related to each other, they're still creative because we don't know who the killer is. It's very meta, the writing is so slick. So creativity wise, I'm going to have to give it to Scream. Lastly, we're going to go into the villains, Michael Myers versus Ghostface. Now, something that we know about Michael Myers is he is the consistent bad guy in the Halloween franchise, obviously minus Season of the Witch, but he's consistently there. His motives change, of course, depending on the timeline that you're looking at, but Michael Myers is a constant, and that's it. The Michael Myers that we get changes now and again as well, so we don't know what type of Michael Myers we're going to get depending on the timeline that we're looking at. Then when you look at Ghostface, he is a human being. We know he's a definite human being, whereas obviously Michael's got that supernatural element to him, but Ghostface is a human. Ghostface could be anyone. He could be a friend or a family member or just a random person that just wants to kill you. So this is a hard one because obviously I love Michael Myers, he's an icon, but when you want to change things up and you don't want to know who the killer is, maybe Ghostface would win it. And in fact, the chances of a Ghostface killer coming to you in real life is a lot bigger and likely than having a Michael Myers coming after you. So although Michael Myers may be scarier on screen, I think Ghostface is more realistic. But I'm not saying that Ghostface is the better villain out the both of them. This is a hard one. I would probably say it was a tie, to be honest, because I do love both villains in each franchise, for different reasons. When I break up the franchise into these categories, guys, it seems like Scream is winning most of these, and the ones that Scream don't win, they don't lose either. So when it comes to breaking all this down, it almost seems like Scream is the bigger and better franchise, and again, that is my opinion. Scream is the winner out of this. Obviously Halloween from 1978 is always going to be the masterpiece, and is always going to be better than all the other Scream movies, unless Scream does knock it out of the park in 2022. But I believe that Scream overall is the bigger and better franchise. But I want to know your opinion, guys. Break it down if you want. Give reasons behind what you think is the bigger and better franchise. Leave those comments down below and we can all discuss it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.